I think the best thing about this movie, I mean, beside the fact that it was, I thought, a brilliantly made book, and I think it was, you know, a terrific piece of art.
Leonardo DiCaprio has spent 3 decades being one of the most well-liked men in Hollywood. Directors love him, co-stars call him a professional, but underneath that reputation are a handful of real, well-documented moments where things got tense, awkward, or outright hostile. A blocked casting decision that turned into a shouting match, a co-star who genuinely refused to speak to him for 9 months, a basketball court roast that became public. Today we are going through the real clashes, the ones with actual quotes and actual receipts, not tabloid speculation. Let's start with the one that very nearly never happened at all, because Leonardo DiCaprio himself tried to stop it. In 1995, director Scott Calvert was casting The Basketball Diaries, the drama based on Jim Carroll's memoir about addiction and adolescence in New York City. DiCaprio was already attached to star. Mark Wahlberg, still transitioning out of his Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch persona and trying to be taken seriously as an actor, was up for a supporting role. DiCaprio wanted nothing to do with it. According to Wahlberg's own account, DiCaprio told the production flatly, "Over my dead expletive body, Marky Mark's not going to be in this expletive movie." That is about as direct as a casting objection gets. DiCaprio, fresh off establishing himself as a serious young actor, apparently saw Wahlberg's pop persona as a threat to the film's credibility, and he said so without hesitation. The tension didn't stay confined to a casting room either. The two ran into each other at an MTV Rock and Jock celebrity basketball game not long after, and by most accounts the encounter was noticeably frosty, 2 young competitive guys from very different corners of fame sizing each other up in public. Wahlberg has talked about this feud openly in interviews over the years, never with real bitterness, more with the amused distance of someone looking back at his 20s. And here's the part that makes the story worth telling. It didn't end there. 11 years later, DiCaprio and Wahlberg were cast opposite each other in Martin Scorsese's The Departed, playing characters on opposite sides of an escalating, high-stakes conflict. The film won Best Picture at the Academy Awards. Whatever tension existed in 1995 had either faded or been channeled into something that made both of their performances sharper. Wahlberg earned his first Oscar nomination for that role. Sometimes, Hollywood's rivalries end up funding its greatest collaborations. Next, a clash that had nothing to do with ego and everything to do with 2 very different working styles colliding on a demanding set. In 1996, Baz Luhrmann cast a 19-year-old DiCaprio opposite Claire Danes in Romeo plus Juliet, his hyper-stylized modern retelling of Shakespeare's tragedy. On paper, it should have been electric. On set, according to multiple accounts, it was strained. DiCaprio, by his own reputation at the time, was constantly cracking jokes, pulling pranks, and generally treating the set with the kind of restless, high-energy looseness that many young actors use to cope with pressure. Danes, more serious and internally focused in her approach, reportedly found his behavior immature and distracting. DiCaprio, for his part, allegedly found her too uptight, too locked into a serious headspace for a production that, chaotic as it looked, still required real precision. Neither of them has been especially detailed about it publicly over the years, but the behind-the-scenes friction has been discussed enough, including by people close to the production, that it's treated as one of the more well-known off-screen mismatches of that era of Hollywood. It's a useful reminder that on-screen chemistry, and the 2 of them had plenty of it as Romeo and Juliet, doesn't always translate into an easy working relationship behind the camera. If you're enjoying this breakdown, this is a great time to subscribe. We dig into the real, documented stories behind Hollywood's biggest names every single week, and this one has one more story that's better than anything so far. Now for the one with an actual on-record quote that tells you everything about how seriously some actors take their craft and how badly that can collide with everyone else around them. In 2002, DiCaprio starred opposite Daniel Day-Lewis in Martin Scorsese's Gangs of New York, playing Amsterdam Vallon, a young man out for revenge against Bill the Butcher, the brutal gang leader who killed his father. Day-Lewis played Bill. DiCaprio has told the story of what happened next many times, and it never gets any less remarkable. Just days before filming began, he and Day-Lewis were still exchanging pleasant, ordinary greetings. "Good morning, Daniel. Good morning, Marty." Then filming started. DiCaprio recalled saying, "Morning, Daniel," and getting back only a grunt. His reaction, in his own words, was, "Oh shit, game on." What followed was 9 months of near total silence. DiCaprio has said plainly that he doesn't think he said another word to Day-Lewis for the entire shoot. Day-Lewis, famous for his immersive, all-consuming approach to method acting, simply stayed in character as Bill the Butcher for the full production, refusing to break, refusing to soften, refusing to let DiCaprio, or apparently anyone else, see the actor underneath the role. It wasn't until the very last day of reshoots that the two of them finally looked at each other and cracked a smile. 9 months of a professional relationship reduced to a single moment of relief at the very end. DiCaprio didn't come away from it resentful. If anything, he came away in awe. He later said Day-Lewis's level of commitment was so absolute that it was inspiring to witness, describing how Day-Lewis would go home in character, to whatever degree that's even possible for someone with a spouse and children, and hold that discipline for the length of an entire production. It's worth noting that Day-Lewis has a well-documented history of this kind of complete immersion. While filming My Left Foot, he reportedly stayed in his wheelchair-bound character full-time, requiring crew members to physically move and even feed him. Whatever discomfort DiCaprio experienced during those 9 silent months, he was hardly the first co-star to go through it, and Day-Lewis walked away with a Best Actor Oscar nomination for the performance that caused it. And then, there's the one that's less a feud than a public roast, but a genuinely funny one that still gets brought up whenever DiCaprio's off-screen reputation comes up. George Clooney and DiCaprio have never had a real professional conflict. They're broadly considered friendly within the Hollywood social circuit. But Clooney, never one to pass up an opportunity for a well-aimed joke, once publicly called out DiCaprio's basketball skills, or more specifically, the gap between DiCaprio's basketball trash talk and his basketball ability. According to Clooney's account, DiCaprio and his group of friends would talk an enormous amount of trash on the court, real confidence, real swagger, and then simply fail to back any of it up once the game actually started. Clooney told the story with the kind of gleeful precision that only a fellow A-lister who's actually watched it happen firsthand can deliver. It made headlines briefly, mostly because it was funny and because it painted a picture of DiCaprio that his usual serious actor image rarely allows for, a guy getting roasted by one of his peers for all talk no game energy on a pickup court. The two have long since smoothed over any edge to the story, with DiCaprio's publicist even confirming to press afterward that the two remained basketball buddies. It's the rare Hollywood clash that never needed resolving because it was never really a fight to begin with, just Clooney doing what Clooney does best. Taken together, these 4 stories tell you something real about how DiCaprio operates and how the people around him have responded to that over the decades. He was, by his own admission, willing to fight hard to keep a role's credibility intact, even if it meant blocking a co-star outright, the way he did with Wahlberg. He could clash with a scene partner over something as simple as mismatched working styles and never really resolve it publicly, the way it played out with Danes. He could go 9 months without speaking a single word to one of the greatest actors of his generation and come away calling it one of the most inspiring experiences of his career, which is exactly what happened with Day-Lewis. And he could get thoroughly, publicly roasted by a friend over something as low stakes as pickup basketball and just laugh it off. None of these stories paint DiCaprio as difficult in any conventional sense. If anything, they paint an actor who takes the work seriously enough to occasionally clash with the people around him over it, and who has, time and again, turned those clashes into some of the most acclaimed work of his career. The Departed won Best Picture. Gangs of New York earned both men Oscar nominations. Even Romeo plus Juliet, tension and all, remains one of the defining films of both DiCaprio and Danes' early careers. Sometimes the friction is the point. That is the real story behind the clashes, the ones with actual quotes and actual history behind them. If you want more deep dives like this one, the next video is already waiting for you. Go watch it now. We will see you there.